Good morning. How you doing, buddy? We're here today with Armondo Abadoy, former student of mine, and we've known each other so long that screw the student part. We're really good friends here, and I know what he's up to. He's been an incredible student of mine at Rio Hondo. Now he's going to Cal State Long Beach. There we go. Uh, School pride, all of that stuff. Wait, do you have a real Honda hat on? No, no.
California.
There you go. So Armando, how's it going with school thus far since we're doing everything online? How does that compare to what you were doing before?
there's there's definitely pros and cons. Um, I'll start off with the cons. I think the one that sticks out to me a lot is when you're in class and you have to do critiques, everybody would post their stuff up on the wall, and so like you have like a little gallery basically of what the class did for that term or whatever. I miss that. I miss seeing everybody's piece on the wall, having like that, that gallery experience because, if you're serious about pursuing art as a career, that's kind of what you want to strive for, maybe, for some artists, maybe not, maybe you'd rather be like a storybook illustrator. I'm trying to be a storybook illustrator. So that's definitely a con. If you're like doing life models or something like that, or painting life models, that definitely sucks because you don't have a model in person.
Right.
Like when COVID first started and we had to do everything online, I was taking an advanced life painting class,
Mhm. So
Cal State
you
Long
put
Beach. And
yeah,
so up until March, we were painting models, and then from March and then up all the way up until May, we pretty I, I can't tell you how many self portraits I did of myself.
yeah,
So like because we only had ourselves to paint unless we found somebody in our family who was willing to sit there for a couple hours, but nobody wanted to. So
yeah.
the and in terms of like pros, I would say the biggest pro is the fact that you're at the comfort of your own home. Like when I had a commute to Long Beach, and it would take me 30 minutes to get there if I left early enough, and 30 minutes to get back. That's an hour of your day that you could have spent, I don't know, drawing or something like that.
Yes,
Plus
it's
the time
like
it takes.
not like you
Yeah,
draw on the freeway.
yeah,
No, it's not like you're a lawyer and you can make $150 a minute by talking on the phone. I mean, they can do that stuff while they're on the freeway or anywhere else. We, on the other hand, uh, it doesn't allow us to do stuff like that. You can't drive down the road and draw.
hmm
So uh, I do
yeah.
with Pam's driving, but that's it.
Yeah. And yeah, so I would say that's really my biggest, you know, uh
The big pro that you
the
could
the
say,
big pro is like the convenience of just being home. Like once I'm logged off of school, I could just get straight to work. I don't have to like, walk 15 minutes to get some lunch and then walk back to my classes and stuff like
right,
that. When I was going to when I was taking that painting class last year, I had two backpacks. I had my regular backpack, and then because it was oil paints, and that's like a whole arsenal of gear. I had a second backpack. So as soon as my first class was done, my painting class, I would walk 15 minutes to my parking lot, switch backpacks, and then walk another 15 minutes back on
yeah,
the main campus. So I mean, it's good exercise, but there's the convenience factor is also something to consider. But
definitely.
yeah.
So what are you working on now in terms of your focus within your major?
Recently I've been focusing a lot on kind of developing I guess what would some people would call a style.
Yeah,
Um, and I've been working a lot with breaking things down back to their basic shape and basic color. So some of the artists that I've been looking at are Charlie Harper. I don't know if you're familiar with Charlie Harper. He was like a famous wildlife artist. Used a lot of very geometric shapes
Uh-huh.
um, to illustrate. And then I've also been focused on developing some sort of narrative because one of the things I've been wanting to do is make children's books.
Yes.
And so coming up with characters and coming up with like a storyline and illustrating some concepts. I took a character design the last semester.
Uh-huh.
Um, so uh,
Was that computer generated or was it character design by drawing?
um, this character design class, it was mostly by drawing,
Okay.
but you can use digital media if you wanted to. I was like a lot of people in Cal State Long Beach now use digital media.
They work
I'm
on
almost
an iPad kind of thing.
everybody. Yeah, the shop or Illustrator, or they use this thing called Procreate,
Right.
another program, whatever program they do digital art. And I was one of the few ones that actually did uh, a traditional art. I use gouache.
Yeah.
I know a lot of the students are trained in gouache because
You broke up.
for my illustration 2 class, yeah, it said my internet connection was unstable. I don't know if it was on my end. Um, So I was saying that a lot of the students at Cal State Long Beach were already from some of the more tangible media. Like for our life drawing class, we had to use charcoal and pencils. For our first 2 illustration classes, we had to use traditional media like gouache or watercolor. But with these more advanced classes, I've noticed that students nowadays, I don't, just because the media is available, students nowadays tend to lean towards more digital media.
Hmm.
And I think that's because one, you pretty much have your whole arsenal in a little
Right.
square. There isn't any cleanup, and erasing is as easy as just clicking Command Z.
Yeah. It it's different when you're working hands-on materials, but that helps teach you what you want the computer to do. The computer is a tool like every other kind of tool, and they can really be of great benefit when you're working with that. But in terms of speed and stuff like that, but you still need to know what to tell it. That's where I think
Yeah,
the traditional background really helps.
yeah. Yeah, most definitely. I and recently, these past couple years, I've been like for some like last semester, I had a production class,
Hmm.
and that production class was very digital intensive. And the professor was cool enough to like help me out with certain ways to maneuver what you're trying
Right.
to do. But he really liked the fact that I ended up doing all my projects like kind of in a hybrid style. So
Right.
I would sketch out my drawings and then scan them and then work on them from there. And it
Yeah.
was it was really cool. Like that booklet that I gave you for Christmas about the
Right.
mockingbird and the thrasher, I drew that out first twice. So I drew out the basic outline, then I scanned it in, and then I did 2 printouts. And then with one printout on with a Sharpie marker, I wanted the blue to be, and on the other, I would color in wherever I wanted the red to be. And
Uh-huh.
so I took those and scanned those, rescanned those, and then developed the colors on Photoshop. And it ended up I like the way the booklet came out.
Yeah. Show us some of the stuff that you're working on.
Yeah, sure. Let me see.
What do you got, buddy?
Well, this first, just because I know you asked me. This is the transition project that I did for your class years
The
ago.
Metamorphosis project?
The metamorphosis. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So I'm not sure exactly. Here, let me just share the screen real quick.
Okay.
Hopefully it's enabled.
Nice.
Remember this?
Yes, I do.
So the theme was music and death. We had to make a transition from music to death. And a lot of my art reflects what my interests. I think, that's what everybody should strive for. And so I'm very proud of my heritage. Both my parents were from Mexico, and they were very uh, adamant about teaching me about Mexico and what it means to be Mexican and to be proud of it, to be proud of your heritage. So for my transitional piece for the music, I ended up doing this mariachi guy, and then this mariachi guy breaks up into these more organic shapes.
Can you click on those and make them larger and kind of go step by step, or
Um,
best we can see them?
I think this is the best we can see them. I can't go any larger than I could probably zoom in maybe. Let's see. Is that better?
No, it's the same.
Can which one are you seeing?
Well, I'm seeing everything. I'm seeing 4 images at the top from your metamorphosis with the fifth one below.
Oh, okay. Hold on. Let me see. Let me see if I can do this. Yeah, this screen share stuff is that better?
No. Can you click on the guy with the guitarra?
Can you see it now? Oh.
I can see all of them, but if you double click on that, is that like in preview? So you can't blow up the image, or
Yeah, hold on. I think I got it now. How's that?
there we go. Yeah.
Okay. Can you see the next one?
No, you have to,
No?
there you go. Nice.
Okay, cool. I
So
guess it's just a little bit
here,
delayed.
rectilinear, hard
Right.
line, yeah, flat illustration.
Mm-hmm.
The second one,
That's when you start breaking things up into more organic shapes.
yeah. And then the third one, where it's really twisting and turning, developing, love it. And the fourth one,
Can you see
yeah,
the fourth one?
yes. And then the fifth one, it's just really beautiful. Really beautiful transition. You get what's going on with all of this stuff. I remember this really impressed me because you were drawing from what you knew in your head. And that's such a special skill. Not everybody has. I prefer to look at stuff and draw, but when I'm drawing things from my imagination, it's not anywhere near as detailed as what you're getting here. There's so many years of drawing with that kind of specific direction that, I mean, you've drawn bulls so many times that you draw the bull because it just comes out of you.
Yeah,
You're able to get their body positions and everything from things that you've seen.
I've been around a lot of bulls too.
Yeah, well, your whole life.
Yeah,
So,
I've never gone to a bullfight. This was just something that I came up with because of the whole death theme. But
right,
I grew up doing charreadas with my family, which is like a Mexican rodeo.
yeah,
But when when I look back at this piece, I always think of that story that you told me, a Chinese tale about an emperor who wanted an artist to paint him a rooster.
yeah,
And so he gave him a year to paint this rooster. And all he did for this year was just spend time in the chicken coop, just looking at the roosters and interacting with the roosters. And the threat was if he didn't finish it by the year, he'd get his head chopped off. So finally, the day came for him to turn in something. And he came in with a blank piece of paper and a loaded brush. And he threw the paper out. And with one stroke of his brush, whasha, he made a rooster.
yeah,
He
yeah.
just knew.
He just knew them intimately. So he
Hmm.
knew exactly how it was to be a rooster.
Hmm.
Yeah, that's really a great story. What are some of the other things that you've been doing?
Here, let me see. Let me see what I got here. These are some of my stuff from my illustration class. Let me just share the screen real quick. Can you see that? Oh,
Oh yeah. Wow,
so
really nice.
for this, this is supposed to be a series of four. I want to, yeah, I did four illustrations, I think. Let me see. These were illustrations that we had to do based off of what we like one of our interests, and one of my interests is going out to nature and looking at the animals and studying the animals and birding. So we had to do illustrations of ourselves doing our favorite activity, you know. And so because so I've been trying to like kind of deflect from rendering things a little too more realistic, and to try to go back down to like basic shapes and composition
Simplifying
and
patterns
color.
and
Yeah, like these two are a little more developed, these two, than the first two.
nice. An acorn woodpecker.
This is actually a Nuttall's woodpecker.
Ah, damn it.
Yeah, the Nuttall's has like that ladder back,
Oh yeah, yeah.
and then this
But
is a
I've been having fun birding in my backyard. So
what was that?
I've been having fun birding in my backyard and seeing all the different things that are coming. I have a lot of different birds that we got a bird feeder, and so they're there all the time now. And
Mhm.
there's woodpeckers, jays,
Oh
mockingbirds,
yeah,
bush
I'm
tits.
sure. Oh, a lot of bush tits, I'm sure.
Yeah,
Always in groups.
and phoebes. I love the phoebes. So
Oh, yeah, the Phoebes are really cool.
yeah, they catch bugs.
Definitely. Uh, um, and yeah, I want to show you a little something. These are some concepts that I created for my character design class.
Right.
And the character I created is a coyote character. I like coyotes. I want to say that's one of my favorite animals. Just
Trick.
based off their mythology and their character. And so I developed this coyote character for my character design class. And the project was, we just had to do like a concept, and then we had to do about a 3-minute pitch. So I come up with this whole mythology for this character.
Nice.
And then I want to show you, these are this is I think this is important to show. These are thumbnails. I want to say this is about an inch by an inch and a half or something like that.
Hmm.
Um, I'm a big proponent of composition ever since you showed me that book, The Geometry of the Artist. And I think
Yeah.
the composition, you can have a beautifully rendered piece, but if the composition doesn't work, it just doesn't feel right. And so,
Structure really helps visually to see what things are happening. Love that Rosetta spoonbill at the bottom there flying off.
yeah,
That's what that is, yeah.
yeah.
With the
So
broken and
this piece was also for my illustration class, and we had to pick a mythological figure to illustrate. And the figure that I picked was an ancient Toltec king called Quetzalcoatl, the feathered serpent.
right,
And I made several thumbs. I already kind of had an idea of what I wanted to do. I just needed to like kind of put it out there.
right.
And then the final piece ended up looking like this. See if I can. uh,
Oh wow.
This
That
is
is
with
gorgeous.
gouache.
Gouache.
Yeah, and it's 11 by 14.
Beautiful. Really a beautiful illustration. I love
I
the
based
back. I love the backlit quality where the sun is shining through the parrot's wing there in the foreground on the left.
yeah. So I with a lot of my work, I do a lot of research because I like to put a lot of meaning into my work, like
Mhm.
hidden meanings. So for example, the stone glyph that you see right here, that's an Aztec glyph called one reed. And in the Aztec calendar, they use symbols to denote days and years. And this character was said to be born in the year one reed.
Ah,
And there's also written accounts that were written down after the Spanish conquest about this legendary figure, and one of them is in Nahuatl. And I chose the birds based off the birds that they described in these passages. So you have the alo, which is the scarlet macaw. You have the quetzaltotoc, which is the the quetzal. You have the xiutotoc, which is this lovely catinga over here. Astat, the heron. The Rosetta spoonbill is called the quecholi, and then the parrots are totome. And these are the birds that were described. So the character sacrifices himself through a funeral pyre, and as his ashes are burning, the birds with beautiful feathering start to fly out.
so it translates they get it by osmosis that all of this sinking in from the funeral pyre.
Yeah, and the legend has it that after he burns away and he dies, he is actually reborn as the morning star, Tlahuitzcalpan Tecutli.
Nice. He's wearing a jaguar fur for a hat and a collar.
Yeah, so that there was some creative what do you call it? Like so the Toltecs, for example, they were like what the Greeks, no, they were like what the Atlanteans were to the Greeks. There's really no evidence that anybody ever called themselves Toltecs. But the Aztecs just had them in high regard, and they always told the legend of this famous king. So there wasn't a lot of like pre-Hispanic illustrations
Right,
of him, and I based a lot of his costuming on descriptions of the Aztecs when the Spanish came over.
right,
So
right.
I chose to use jaguar skin because that jaguar skin denotes royalty.
Mhm.
This is a conch shell that's been kind of cross-hatched um, from the top, and this was a wind jewel, or they call it a wind jewel, Eje Calicoscat, and this was a symbol of the deity Quetzalcoatl. And the thing about this character is that he was very conflated with the deity Quetzalcoatl.
So would that I, I know that those shells like that, the con like that when it's cut, they oftentimes as the wind blows, it makes sounds because of the way that the coil works.
Yeah, that and another. I think the shell has a lot of connotations towards the wind god, which is Quetzalcoatl,
Uh-huh.
and that's what this character was named after. But the spiral also has some symbolism too. The spiral kind of symbolizes like the wheel of life, the never-ending cycle that just keeps spinning and spinning and spinning. It's always in motion.
And
And
it's the what am I trying to say? It's the it goes back to the old European tradition of the golden mean, which is
exactly.
also symbolized in that same wheel. So it's interesting that the mathematics involved in all of that and the way that people they have the same rules, visual kinds of rules from different places. They're coming at it in different ways, but it ends up in the same thing with that coil. It's
Yeah.
so dominant in so many different cultures.
You know, what's funny is with all the research that I was doing, so I found out that the Aztecs, because the sun rises from the east, whenever the Aztecs were depicting the four corners, the cardinal directions, they would always orient the east to the top. And in the early Middle Ages, because east was the direction of Eden as well as where the sun rose. In the early Middle Ages, maps were also oriented with east on the top.
East on the top instead of
Yeah,
you see it
yeah,
as north on the top. And yeah, that's really interesting. Um, all of the similarities that show up, like all of the different cultures from around the world that have dragons. Um, you know, the Chinese had their dragons, the Persians had dragons.
yeah,
It just it's a phenomenon that I find really interesting because it transcends cultures.
yeah, yeah. I'm a big fan of comparative mythology.
Hmm.
Um, and so I always try to look for similarities and stuff like that among cultures. Let me see what else I got here. Um, this is this is something we had to do for my. This is a hold on. So this is something we had to do for my sequential imagery class. Um, and I chose the opportunity to do about birding. And the whole thing was that we had to do like an illustrated booklet with text kind of incorporated in it. And so this is one of those examples of the hybrid stuff that I do. So I did the paintings and I left room for text. And so the activity that I chose was birding.
Right. You
So
are avid bird
I
guy.
would leave room for text in these
Right.
illustrations.
And that's perfect. That's the wind that they're cutting through, the reasoning behind them flying in the diamond shape and all of that.
Hmm.
Yeah, very cool.
Yeah, the original paintings, if you could just imagine it without text, that's what it looked like. And then when I scanned them in, and then through Photoshop, I added in text where I wanted them to.
Really nice. And that's
And
so
you want to?
important as an illustrator is the fact that you have to leave spaces if you're doing an illustration for a book cover, if you're doing an whatever that is, there are places where text needs to live in the illustration
Hmm.
and to compose that way around the fact that text is going to be in there. I like the way that you've used a lot of your text as showing the wind, the way that the birds were flying, and it just you could feel the dynamics there with the birds and the words. Ooh,
Hmm.
ooh, poetry.
Definitely. Um, I guess I could show you some of my sketchbook stuff as well and things that I like to illustrate.
Absolutely. It's important. I do want to show this to my students. I want to show them ways of drawing and ways of developing halftones and things like that as well.
Hmm.
Your watercolor pieces, all these animals on top of each other, huh? So
Yeah.
explain this. Is there any significance?
Um, this was based off a memory I had when I was a kid. I remember there was a song that we used to sing because I took dual language courses when I was in kinder.
Uh-huh.
And there was a song we used to sing about it. I think the song was called De Colores. It's an old Spanish song. And I remember one of the pictures that the teacher was using to help us learn the song, it had a bunch of animals stacked on top of each other.
Uh-huh.
And so I kind of wanted to replicate it based off animals that I like. Um, and so I did it with so the sun's rising and like these animals are trying to help the rooster announce the morning sun.
Cool. Oh, nice.
This is a fish that I almost caught. Almost. I swear he looked me like this is the exact bait that I was using too. I was using a little worm tail
Uh-huh.
on a swivel hook, and it was a brown trout. I was fishing up in Crowley by
Right.
Mammoth.
Yeah.
And I remember I got snagged twice and I had to cut my line twice. And I'm like, man, it's like if I don't catch anything this on this next throw, as I say we call it a day, it was already getting dark. I cast out the line and I think and I felt like I got snagged. And I was like, man, I got snagged again. But I managed to get this one out this time, and I was reeling it back in, not expecting anything. And then from the murky depths of the water, I see this shadow come up, and I'm like, oh, I think it's a fish. And so I stopped reeling in, and then it comes up a little closer, and I saw that it was this big old brown trout, as big as my forearm.
Wow.
And I was trying to reel it in, and then he noticed me. Like he literally, like he looked through the side of his face, and then just swam back down.
Nice.
I'll
Just,
never forget that fish.
yep. That's the one that you keep going after.
Yeah. I ended up catching a little brown trout somewhere else. Also near Mammoth.
They're so beautiful.
Hmm.
Browns are. There's a rainbow.
This is a cutthroat.
Yeah.
Some logo designs I was doing for a friend of mine.
Charged screwdriver.
Yeah.
So is that
Yeah.
vodka and
This is
orange
some
juice and monster drink?
like a Gatorade. I'm a big fan of mythology. And so I like this is just like a little watercolor and ink concept that I came up for Bellerophon, which is the guy who rode Pegasus and killed this monster called a chimera, a
Mhm.
composite creature composed of a goat, a lion, and a snake or a dragon.
Yeah, nice.
There's some animal sketches that I did, and the animals I chose are based off animals from Aesop fables.
Great.
So Aesop fables like the tortoise and the hare, the fox and the crow, um, the stork and the wolf, things like that.
I love his fables. I found out many years ago that Aesop was a horribly deformed dwarf,
Yeah, some accounts say that he was.
and he lived a lot with the animals, and he made stories about the animals, but they were really about the people's parables.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So really beautiful. All of the things that go along with him. I love those stories. They
Yeah,
have a certain innocence, but then they have a certain bite as well.
it's what Disney did to Hamlet. And they made the Lion King. Yeah,
Yeah, they Disneyfied it though. Nice. Turkey vultures, and is that a coyote in the
so this is actually a condor.
so bigger,
Yeah, bigger condor,
the white
grizzly
on the
bear,
wings, grizzly
and
bear.
mule deer.
Got him. They're in the mule deer in the shadows there.
Yeah, and then the grizzly bears
Bird
right
right
here.
there in the foreground.
Smell something.
What is that bird?
This one here. Oh, that's a thrasher.
Nice, beautifully done. I've never seen one in the wild.
A thrasher?
Condor.
Oh, me neither. I've always wanted to.
Yeah, we should go out one day.
Definitely. So yeah, a lot of my work comes from like my sketchbook art, and I'll sketch multiple concepts repeatedly just to see if I can get it.
Uh-huh.
Inside the art building.
At Cal State Long Beach.
No, Rio
No,
Hondo.
this is at Rio.
Yeah,
Get it?
palm trees and everything.
Yeah, that's the original palm trees that used to go down the road down to Workman Mill when the Pellissiers lived there, where Rio
Yeah,
Hondo is
I remember
today.
you telling me that.
Beautiful. Really lovely illustration. Wow, that's nice. With a looks like a longhorn steer out there.
Yeah. So,
Out in
bison,
Texas.
bison latifrons, the longhorn bison.
Yeah,
So I did this after a little sketch, but everything pretty much over here on this side is extinct, and everything below is still existing. But at one time they did coexist.
yeah. There's even stories. Lindsay just found some stories in the Choctaw about how these big creatures that used to come and rub on the trees, and they killed this whole area. They killed the trees there from them constantly rubbing the bark off on their skin. And the way they described them, they're mammoths.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
So yeah,
You ever
that's
heard of the Osage orange?
no.
Osage orange
You're sticking again.
is a tree. So it gives off this fruit that isn't eaten by anything. And the idea is that the only thing that was capable of eating those fruits were mammoths and mastodons from back in the Ice Age. But since they died off, nothing's been able to eat this Osage orange.
Wow.
These are just some concepts I did for one of my illustration classes. These are little thumbnails. Just working,
In the
having
competition
fun.
slightly.
Yeah.
Nice.
And
Talk
that's the
about,
final piece.
talk about the importance of thumbnails.
They're very important, especially you know, everybody has their ideas and stuff like that, and you know, sometimes you want to go with the first thing that comes out of your hand,
Yeah,
but it's always good to kind of, you know, plan things out. Thumbnails are kind of like your blueprints before you actually start on the final thing, and they save some time in the sense that if you start something right off the bat without doing thumbnails and you finish it and you see like you made a couple mistakes, it's kind of hard to go back
right,
to
right,
that and fix it. Whereas if you do your thumbnails first, you can work out all the little kinks of. And I do thumbnails for composition mostly. I want to figure out the composition first.
right. On this piece, what is the media on that? Is that just pencil or
Yeah, it's just graphite.
looks like a lithograph almost?
A little bit. The paper was very textured.
Yeah. Well, thanks for
So
doing
the
this, Armando. I'm gonna have to cut it off, otherwise this won't save as a video they can watch.
okay,
Really
yeah, no worries,
appreciate
Ron.
doing this, man. It was
No,
very
no problem.
nice. Very nice. A
No,
nice
no problem.
just peek into your life. So thank you very much. When we can get together, we need to go and do something, draw some birds, draw some things like we did before. So,
Most definitely, Ron. I'll definitely hit you up for that.
all right. Thanks,
Yeah.
my friend. I will talk to you soon.
All right. Love you, Ron. Take it easy.
Okay. Love you too.